Tyrone Washington wheeled his cleaning cart through the empty hallways of Nexus Station at 3 in the morning. The massive space station floated between Earth and the outer colonies, serving as a meeting place for dozens of alien species. During the day, the corridors buzzed with strange voices and even stranger creatures conducting business. But at night, it belonged to the maintenance crew. Tyrone had been working the graveyard shift for almost 2 years now. Back home in Detroit, his 15-year-old daughter Keisha was probably finishing her homework or texting friends. Every paycheck he earned on this lonely station went straight to her college fund. The hazard pay for working around aliens was triple what he'd make cleaning office buildings back on Earth. He pushed his cart past the diplomatic wing, where important alien visitors stayed in fancy suites. These rooms were supposed to be empty tonight according to his work schedule. The cleaning staff wasn't allowed in occupied rooms without special permission. Too many security risks with all the different species and their weird customs. But as Tyrone passed Suite 7 Alpha, he heard something that made him stop dead in his tracks. Crying. Not the electronic beeping of some alien device or the hum of life support systems. This sounded like children crying. Tyrone had heard that exact sound too many times during his daughter's childhood. When Keisha was sick with fever, when she had nightmares, when her mother died 3 years ago. He knew the difference between adult distress and a child's desperate wail. The sound came again from behind the sealed door. 2 voices, maybe more, crying in harmony like they were feeding off each other's fear. Tyrone looked around the empty corridor. No security guards in sight. The monitoring drones had moved on to the next section. His maintenance badge would get him into any room on the station. It was meant for emergencies only, but this felt like an emergency. What if alien children were hurt or abandoned? What if they needed help? Tyrone pressed his badge against the door scanner. The lock clicked open with a soft hiss. The suite was dark except for emergency lighting strips along the floor. The crying got louder as he stepped inside, coming from the main living area. Tyrone left his cart in the hallway and walked carefully toward the sound. In the corner of the room, huddled together like scared puppies, were 2 small creatures unlike anything he'd ever seen. They were about the size of human toddlers, maybe 2 feet tall, with skin that looked like colored glass. Their skin was shifting colors as they cried, flashing between deep purple and bright red like warning lights. They had 4 arms each, thin and delicate, and large eyes that took up half their faces. When they saw Tyrone, they didn't run or attack. They just cried harder, reaching toward him with those tiny hands like they wanted to be picked up. Tyrone's heart broke. These weren't monsters or dangerous aliens. They were babies, scared and alone, calling out for someone to help them. The room showed signs of hasty departure. Furniture was overturned, and strange alien clothes were scattered on the floor like someone had packed in a hurry. "Hey there, little ones," Tyrone whispered, crouching down to their level. "Where's your mama and daddy?" The alien babies couldn't understand his words, but they responded to his gentle tone. Their frantic crying softened to sniffles and whimpers. Tyrone had always been good with kids. Even before Keisha was born, he was the uncle who could calm down crying babies at family gatherings. Without thinking about alien germs or safety protocols, Tyrone reached out and touched one of the creature's heads. The skin felt warm and smooth, almost like touching water. The baby leaned into his touch, making a soft humming sound. That's when Tyrone started humming back. An old song his grandmother used to sing to him when he was scared. "Hush little baby, don't say a word, Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird." The effect was immediate and incredible. Both alien babies stopped crying completely. Their glass-like skin shifted from angry red to pale blue, then to soft green. They moved closer to Tyrone, drawn to his voice like flowers turning toward sunlight. Tyrone kept humming, then started singing softly. The melody filled the dark room, bouncing off the walls and wrapping around the frightened children like a warm blanket. He'd sung this same song to Keisha during thunderstorms and after bad dreams. As he sang, Tyrone realized he was in way over his head. These had to be important alien children, maybe even royalty, judging by the expensive suite. Someone would be looking for them. He should call security right now and report the situation. But looking down at the 2 small faces staring up at him with complete trust, Tyrone made a decision that would change everything. He would stay with them until morning, keep them calm and safe, then figure out what to do. He had no idea that somewhere in the depths of space, a powerful alien mother was searching desperately for her missing children, following the faint emotional echoes of a human janitor's lullaby. For the next 3 nights, Tyrone found himself sneaking back to Suite 7 Alpha during his shift. He couldn't get those 2 little alien babies out of his head. Something about their helpless crying had touched a part of his heart that he thought had closed off when his wife died. The first night after discovering them, he'd managed to calm them down with his singing. But when his shift ended and he had to leave, they started wailing again. The sound followed him all the way back to his quarters. He barely slept, wondering if they were okay, if someone had found them, if they were hungry or scared. The second night he came prepared. Tyrone had done some research in the station's database about the different alien species that visited. The babies matched the description of Zephyrians, a race known for their telepathic abilities and warrior culture. They were considered one of the most powerful civilizations in this sector of the galaxy. But these weren't scary warriors. They were just babies who needed someone to care about them. Tyrone had raided the station's emergency supply closet and found some nutrition gel packs that were supposedly safe for most alien species. He also brought a small blanket from his own quarters and a flashlight that gave off softer light than the harsh emergency strips. When he entered the suite, both babies immediately reached for him, making excited chirping sounds. Their skin glowed a happy yellow-green color that reminded Tyrone of fireflies in summer. They recognized him, trusted him, needed him. "I'm gonna call you Hope and Dream," he told them as he settled down on the floor. "Because that's what you are to me right now. Hope that everything's gonna be okay, and maybe a dream that I'm doing the right thing." Hope was slightly smaller and seemed to be the shy one, always hiding behind Dream when Tyrone first arrived. Dream was the brave explorer, crawling closer to examine Tyrone's cleaning supplies with curious fingers. Both of them had this amazing ability to change their skin color based on their emotions. Happy was yellow-green, sad was purple, scared was red, and sleepy was a soft blue. Tyrone discovered they loved his singing voice. Every time he hummed or sang, they would stop whatever they were doing and focus completely on the sound. Sometimes they would hum along in their own alien way, creating harmonies that gave Tyrone goosebumps. By the third night he had established a routine. He would finish his regular cleaning duties as quickly as possible, then spend the rest of his shift with Hope and Dream. He would feed them the nutrition gel, though they seemed to prefer it when he warmed it up first by holding the packets against his body heat. "You know, back on Earth, my daughter Keisha used to hate cold food too," he told them as they ate. "She'd make this face like you just did, Dream." All scrunched up and offended. Tyrone pulled out his personal tablet and showed them pictures of Keisha. Hope and Dream seemed fascinated by the images, touching the screen gently with their small fingers. When he played a video of Keisha laughing at her last birthday party, both alien babies made happy chirping sounds. "That's my little girl," Tyrone said with pride in his voice. "She's smart as a whip and twice as stubborn. Gets that from her mama. I'm working way out here so she can go to college and become whatever she wants. Maybe a doctor or a scientist. She's got the brains for it." The babies didn't understand his words, but they seemed to understand his emotions. When he talked about Keisha, his voice got warm and full of love. When he mentioned missing her, there was sadness there. Hope and Dream would move closer during these moments as if trying to comfort him. Tyrone started bringing things from his quarters to make the abandoned suite more comfortable. A pillow that smelled like home, a small music player loaded with lullabies and gentle songs, even some of his own clothes to use as extra blankets. The alien babies seemed to find comfort in these human items, especially anything that carried Tyrone's scent. He began teaching them simple games that had worked with Keisha when she was little. Peekaboo was a huge hit. Hope and Dream would giggle in their alien way when Tyrone covered his face with his hands and then revealed himself. They tried to copy the game, covering their large eyes with their tiny hands. Pat-a-Cake was trickier with 4 arms each, but they eventually figured out a version that worked for them. Tyrone would clap his hands while singing the rhyme, and they would clap all 4 of their hands in response, creating a complex rhythm that was actually quite beautiful. What Tyrone didn't know was that every song he sang, every gentle touch, every moment of care was being transmitted across space through the telepathic connection that all Zephyrian children shared with their parents. Light years away, Empress Vera of the Zephyrian Empire was experiencing fragments of these tender moments through her children's minds. The proud warrior queen, who had never shown weakness or gentle emotion in her entire adult life, found herself moved to tears by the simple human kindness filtering through her telepathic link with Hope and Dream. Light years away from Nexus Station, Empress Vera stood on the command deck of her massive warship, staring out at the endless stars. Her empire controlled 15 star systems, and her military forces were feared across 3 galaxies. But right now, none of that power could help her find her missing children. The Zephyrian Empire had enemies everywhere. Political rivals who would love to use her twins as leverage. Rebel groups who wanted to overthrow her rule. Even allies who might see kidnapping the royal children as a way to control her decisions. When Hope and Dream disappeared from their transport ship during what should have been a routine diplomatic mission, Vera had assumed the worst. For 2 weeks, her fleets had been searching every space station, every hidden base, every possible location where someone might hide 2 Zephyrian royal children. Her telepathic abilities, stronger than most of her people, should have been able to locate them easily. But something was blocking the connection. Some kind of interference that made it impossible to pinpoint their location. All she could feel were fragments. Tiny pieces of emotion that made no sense. Warmth without fear. Comfort without pain. Safety without the presence of other Zephyrians. It was impossible. Her children were in the hands of strangers, yet somehow they felt happy? Vera had been raised in the traditional Zephyrian way. Strength above all else. Emotion was weakness. Love was a luxury that rulers could not afford. She had been trained from childhood to suppress her feelings, to make decisions based on logic and power rather than sentiment. Even with her own children, she had maintained the proper distance. Royal heirs needed to be strong, independent, ready to rule. But now, through the broken telepathic link, she was experiencing something completely foreign to her culture. The emotions coming from her children weren't the terror she expected from kidnapped royal heirs. Instead, she felt echoes of genuine happiness, comfort, and something that could only be described as love. Late at night, when her command staff thought she was reviewing battle plans, Vera would close her eyes and focus on the telepathic fragments. Sometimes she could almost hear music. Strange, alien melodies that seemed to wrap around her children's consciousness like a warm embrace. The tunes were simple, repetitive, nothing like the complex ceremonial songs of her own people. Yet they carried an emotional weight that Zephyrian war chants never achieved. One night, the connection was stronger than usual. Through Hope's mind, Vera experienced the sensation of being held, rocked gently while a deep voice hummed an unfamiliar melody. The emotion attached to this memory was pure contentment, the kind of peace that Vera had never felt in her entire life. Through Dream's perspective, she saw flashes of a dark-skinned face with kind eyes, hands that moved gently, never roughly. She felt the warmth of being fed with patience, played with like the children were precious rather than burdens. Most shocking of all, she sensed no desire for power or gain from this mysterious caretaker. Just simple, selfless care. Vera tried to understand what she was experiencing. In Zephyrian culture, children were raised by professional caretakers who followed strict protocols. Emotions were controlled, measured, used as tools rather than expressed freely. The idea of an adult singing silly songs or playing games with children was completely foreign to her worldview. Yet through her telepathic connection with Hope and Dream, she began to understand something that her warrior culture had forgotten. There was strength in gentleness, power in patience, victory in simple acts of kindness that expected nothing in return. The breakthrough came during what Tyrone thought was just another quiet night with the twins. He had been teaching them a clapping game, laughing as they tried to coordinate their forearms to match his rhythm. Hope had finally gotten it right and was glowing bright gold with pride. Dream was trying to copy his sister's success, tongue sticking out in concentration. "That's it, Dream, you almost got it," Tyrone encouraged, clapping slowly so the little one could follow. "Just like when I taught Keisha to tie her shoes. Takes practice, but you'll get there." At that moment, the telepathic connection between the twins and their mother was clearer than it had been since their disappearance. Vera experienced the entire scene through both children's minds simultaneously. She felt their joy at mastering the simple game, their trust in the human who was teaching them, their complete lack of fear or distress. But more than that, she experienced Tyrone's emotions as reflected through her children's telepathic abilities. His genuine pride in their small accomplishments. His protective instincts that had nothing to do with duty or obligation. His loneliness for his own daughter, channeled into caring for 2 alien babies who needed him. For the first time in her adult life, Empress Vera wept. Not from pain or anger or frustration, but from a strange mixture of gratitude and recognition. Somewhere in the galaxy, a being she had never met was treating her children with more tenderness than she had ever shown them herself. The revelation changed everything. This wasn't a kidnapping or a political plot. This was something far more dangerous to everything she thought she knew about strength and weakness, power and love. Her children had found something that her entire empire had lost centuries ago. They had found someone who cared about them simply because they needed care, not because of who they were or what they represented. And somehow, through their innocent telepathic sharing, they were teaching their warrior Empress mother what it meant to love without conditions. Commander Jackson had been running Nexus Station security for 12 years, and he thought he'd seen everything. Smugglers hiding contraband in food shipments, diplomatic incidents over seating arrangements, Even a few alien species trying to claim the entire station as their territory. But this morning's briefing brought something completely new to his desk. "Sir, we've got a problem in the diplomatic wing," Lieutenant Rodriguez said, sliding a data pad across his desk. "Our night shift scanners picked up unauthorized life signs in Suite 7 Alpha. The room's been officially vacant for 2 weeks." Jackson frowned as he reviewed the sensor readings. 2 small life forms, definitely alien based on their biosignatures. Could be stowaways. Or worse, someone's using our station as a hiding spot for something illegal. That's what we thought too, sir. But here's the weird part. Rodriguez pulled up another screen. Our security feeds show only one person accessing that suite repeatedly. Tyrone Washington, 3rd shift maintenance. Jackson knew Tyrone by reputation. Clean record, reliable worker, sent most of his pay back to family on Earth. Not exactly the profile of someone involved in alien trafficking or illegal smuggling operations. Maybe he's being forced into it, Jackson suggested. Blackmail, threats against his family. We've seen that before with the Outer Colony crews. But even as he said it, something felt off. The sensor logs showed Tyrone entering the suite at the same time each night, staying for several hours, then leaving peacefully. No signs of distress, no communication with outside contacts, no unusual financial transactions. If someone was forcing him to do this, they were being very subtle about it. "Get a full security team ready," Jackson ordered. "We're going in tonight during his usual visit. Whatever's happening in that room, we're going to find out." At 2:47 a.m., Tyrone was sitting on the floor of Suite 7 Alpha with Hope and Dream curled up against his sides. He just finished feeding them their nightly meal and was singing Amazing Grace, in the low, gentle voice that never failed to make them sleepy. Their skin had shifted to that soft blue color that meant they were content and ready for sleep. "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me," Tyrone sang softly, stroking Hope's smooth head as her large eyes began to close. "I once was lost but now I'm found, was blind but now I see." Dream yawned in that cute alien way, all 4 arms stretching at once before curling back around Tyrone's arm. These moments had become the best part of Tyrone's day. Better than video calls with Keisha, better than payday, better than anything he'd experienced since his wife died. He was just starting the second verse when the suite door burst open. Bright lights flooded the room as armed security officers poured in, weapons drawn and scanning for threats. "Freeze! Station security!" Commander Jackson shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. Tyrone's first instinct was to protect Hope and Dream. He wrapped his arms around both babies, shielding them from the sudden chaos. The twins went from sleepy blue to terrified red in seconds, their distressed crying filling the room with heartbreaking sound. "It's okay, babies, it's okay," Tyrone whispered, rocking them gently despite the weapons pointed at him. "These are just some confused people. Nobody's gonna hurt you." Commander Jackson had expected many things when he burst into that room. A smuggling operation, a hostage situation, maybe even some kind of illegal alien fighting ring. What he didn't expect was to find his maintenance worker sitting on the floor like a loving father, comforting 2 crying alien children with the same gentle voice he'd been using to sing lullabies. "Washington, what the hell is going on here?" Jackson demanded, though he lowered his weapon. "These are Zephyrian royal children. Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into?" "Royal?" Tyrone looked down at Hope and Dream, who were clinging to him like their lives depended on it. "I just found them crying and scared. Somebody abandoned them here. I couldn't just leave babies alone and frightened." "Abandoned?" Rodriguez stepped forward, scanning the room with new eyes. The overturned furniture, the scattered belongings, the signs of hasty departure. "Sir, this looks like an evacuation, not a planned drop-off." Before Jackson could respond, every communication device in the room began buzzing at once. Emergency priority messages flooding in from Command Central. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a transmission that made everyone in the room freeze. Empress Vera of the Zephyrian Empire appeared on the screen, her imposing figure filling the display. Behind her, the bridge of her massive warship was visible, with dozens of alien officers standing at attention. Her presence was intimidating enough through a video screen. In person she would have been terrifying. "Nexus Station Command," her voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. "I am Empress Vera. My children were lost during an evacuation of their transport vessel 2 weeks ago. My scouts have traced their location to your facility." Jackson stepped forward, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "Your Majesty, we've just located your children. They're safe and unharmed." "Safe?" The Empress leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. With whom have they been staying? What ambassador or diplomat has been caring for the royal heirs of the Zephyrian Empire? Jackson glanced back at Tyrone, who was still sitting on the floor, gently bouncing hope and dream to keep them calm. Their crying had stopped, but they refused to let go of the human who had become their whole world. "Well, Your Majesty," Jackson began, realizing how ridiculous this was going to sound, "they've been in the care of our night shift janitor." The silence that followed was deafening. Empress Vera's expression went through several changes as she processed this information. Confusion, disbelief, and then something that might have been curiosity. "A janitor," she repeated slowly. "A cleaning person has been caring for the future rulers of my empire." "Yes, ma'am. And from what I can see, he's done a pretty good job of it." Through the telepathic link she shared with her children, Vera could feel their emotional state. They weren't traumatized or afraid, except for the current confusion caused by all the strangers with weapons. They felt safe, loved, protected. They associated these feelings with the human who was holding them. "I wish to speak with this janitor," Vera said finally. Tyrone looked up at the screen, still holding the twins close. "Your Majesty, I'm real sorry if I did something wrong. I just couldn't leave them crying and alone. Any parent would have done the same thing." For a moment, the most powerful ruler in 3 galaxies stared at a human maintenance worker through a video screen, trying to understand how a simple act of kindness had accomplished something her entire empire couldn't do. Her children were happy. 3 months later, Tyrone stood in what had to be the most beautiful garden he'd ever seen in his life. Crystal trees stretched toward a purple sky, their branches chiming softly in the alien breeze. Flowers that looked like they were made of stained glass swayed around his feet, changing colors as hope and dream ran between them, their laughter creating ripples of light across the petals. "Dad, watch this," Keisha called out from across the garden. She was teaching the twins a clapping game, all of them sitting in a circle on the soft grass that felt like silk under their feet. Hope had gotten really good at coordinating her forearms, while Dream was still struggling but determined to keep up with his sister. Tyrone shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago he was pushing a mop around Nexus Station, counting every credit to afford Keisha's school supplies. Now his daughter was playing with alien royalty on their home planet, learning telepathic communication techniques that would probably get her into any college in the galaxy. "It's remarkable, isn't it?" Empress Vera's voice came from behind him. Even after all this time, Tyrone still felt a little nervous around her. She was the ruler of 15 star systems, commander of fleets that could destroy planets. But watching her children play had softened something in her face that made her seem almost human. "Your Majesty, I still can't believe all this happened because I couldn't walk past crying babies," Tyrone said, watching as Keisha helped Dream finally master the clapping pattern. The little alien glowed bright gold with pride, and his happiness made the crystal flowers around them sparkle even brighter. "That's exactly why it happened," Vera replied. "Do you know what my advisors told me when I first announced this cultural exchange program? They said it was impossible. That humans and Zephyrians were too different, that your species was too emotional, too unpredictable." Tyrone laughed. "What did you tell them?" "I told them that emotion wasn't a weakness. I told them that love wasn't unpredictable, it was the most reliable force in the universe. And I told them that if a human janitor could teach my children to be happy in 2 weeks, maybe we had something to learn." The program had started small. Just Tyrone's family and a few Zephyrian children, learning from each other in controlled environments. But word had spread quickly through both human and alien communities. Parents from Earth wanted to learn the Zephyrian telepathic bonding techniques that created such deep connections between family members. Zephyrian families wanted to understand the human approach to child rearing that produced such emotional strength and creativity. Now there were exchange centers on 12 different worlds. Human families teaching alien parents about bedtime stories, playground games, and the importance of hugs. Alien families showing humans how to communicate through emotion, how to sense their children's needs before they were even spoken, how to create bonds that lasted across any distance. "Mom, look what Uncle Tyrone taught us." Dream came running over, followed closely by Hope and Keisha. The twins had started calling Tyrone Uncle after the first week on their planet, and the title had stuck. In Zephyrian culture, it was actually a higher honor than being called caretaker or even guardian. Dream held up a small wooden toy that Tyrone had carved from a fallen crystal tree branch. It was a simple top that spun when you pulled a string, but the way it moved made patterns in the air that interacted with Zephyrian telepathic abilities, creating colors and music that only they could perceive. "That's beautiful, sweetie," Vera said, kneeling down to Dream's level. A year ago, she never would have used such a gentle tone with any child, even her own. Now it came naturally, learned from watching Tyrone interact with Hope and Dream during those late nights on Nexus Station. "Can you show me how it works?" she asked. Dream beamed with pride as he demonstrated the toy, his skin shifting through every color of happiness. Hope joined in, adding her own telepathic harmonies to the display. Keisha clapped and cheered, even though she couldn't see or hear what the twins were creating. "This is what I was trying to tell my war council," Vera said to Tyrone as they watched the children play. "Strength isn't about having the biggest weapons or the most territory. It's about having something worth protecting. Something that makes you fight harder, love deeper, reach further than you ever thought possible." Tyrone nodded. "That's what Keisha taught me when her mother died. I thought my world was over, but then I realized I had something more important than my own pain. I had her future to fight for." "And now?" Vera asked. Tyrone looked around the garden, at his daughter teaching alien children human games, at the twins who had become like his own kids, at the impossible life he'd stumbled into just by refusing to walk past children who needed help. "Now I've got 4 futures to fight for. And I've learned that the best way to fight for someone is to sing them to sleep at night and teach them that they're loved no matter what." As the alien sun set, painting the crystal garden in shades of gold and purple, Tyrone gathered all 4 children around him for their nightly ritual. It didn't matter that they were on an alien planet, surrounded by technology that could reshape matter and minds that could speak without words. What mattered was the circle of trust they formed, the voices that joined his in songs that now carried across star systems. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star," Tyrone began, and 4 young voices joined him, human and alien harmony blending into something new and beautiful. "How I wonder what you are." The lullaby that had started as comfort for 2 frightened alien babies had become the unofficial anthem of the largest peaceful collaboration in galactic history. Schools throughout human and Zephyrian space now taught it as a symbol of how understanding could grow from the simplest acts of kindness. And in the crystal gardens of Zephyr Prime, under stars that twinkled in patterns no human eye had ever seen before, a former janitor from Detroit continued the work he'd started in a darkened suite on a space station far from home. The work of proving that love, in any language, under any sky, was the strongest force in the universe.